think the St. Bartholomew's Day Massacre is possibly where the historical serials of the First Doctor most succeeded in being both a kind of an educational period drama and a time travel piece of kind of playful anachronistic speculative fiction as well. It's well acted from both the guest cast and the regulars two regulars, Hartnell and Peter Purves. I think it's quite an impressive production all in all. My only complaint in this instance is that I wish it were available, and obviously I had a slight misgiving about the previous episode. I think Peter Purves is a good actor, although I felt as though the Doctor's presence was missed. And now I'd like to read about the French Wars of Religion to you all to expand upon the information about the St. Bartholomew's Day Massacre in the previous entry, although first just a spiel about the Reformation, alternatively named the Protestant Reformation or the European Reformation, was a major movement within Western Christianity in 16th century Europe that posed a religious and political challenge to the Catholic Church, and in particular to papal authority, arising from what were perceived to be errors, abuses, and discrepancies by the Catholic Church. The Reformation was the start of Protestantism and the split of the Western Church into Protestantism and what is now the Roman Catholic Church. It is also considered to be one of the events that signified the end of the Middle Ages and the beginning of the early modern period in Europe. Prior to Martin Luther and the other Protestant reformers, there were earlier reform movements within Western Christianity. Although the Reformation is usually considered to have started with the publication of the 95 Theses by Martin Luther in 1517, he was not excommunicated by Pope Leo X until January 1521. The Diet of Worms of May 1521 condemned Luther and officially banned citizens of the Holy Roman Empire from defending or propagating his ideas. The spread of Gutenberg's printing press provided the means for the rapid dissemination of religious materials in the vernacular. Luther survived after being declared an outlaw due to the protection of Elector Frederick the Wise. The initial movement in Germany diversified, and other reformers such as Huldrych Zwingli and John Calvin arose. In general, the reformers argued that salvation in Christianity was a completed status based on faith in Jesus alone, and not a process that requires good works, as in the Catholic view. Key events of the period include Diet of Worms 1521, formation of the Lutheran Duchy of Paris 1525, English Reformation 1529 onwards, the Council of Trent 1545-63, Peace of Augsburg 1555, the excommunication of Elizabeth I 1570, Edict of Nantes 1598, and Peace of Westphalia 1648. The Counter-Reformation, was called the Catholic Reformation or the Catholic Revival, was the period of Catholic reforms initiated in response to the Protestant Reformation. The end of the Reformation era is disputed among modern scholars. Now, the apotheosis of these in the continent. The French Wars of Religion is the term which is used in reference to a period of civil war between French Catholics and Protestants, commonly called Huguenots, which lasted from 1562 to 1598. According to estimates, between 2 and 4 million people died from violence, famine, or diseases, which are directly caused by the conflict. Additionally, the conflict severely damaged the power of the French monarchy. The fighting ended in 1598 when Henry of Navarre, who had converted to Catholicism in 1593, was proclaimed Henry IV of France and issued the Edict of Nantes, which granted substantial rights and freedoms to the Huguenots. However, Catholics continued to have a hostile opinion of Protestants in general and of Henry, and his assassination in 1610 triggered a fresh round of Huguenot rebellions in the 1620s. Tensions between the two religions had been building since the 1530s, exacerbating existing regional divisions. The death of Henry II of France in July 1559 initiated a prolonged struggle for power between his widow Catherine de' Medici and powerful nobles. These included a fervently Catholic faction led by the Guise and Montmorency families, and Protestants headed by the House of Condé and Jean d'Albret. Both sides received assistance from external powers, with Spain and Savoy supporting the Catholics and England and the Dutch Republic backing the Protestants. Moderates, also known as politiques, hoped to maintain order by centralizing power and making concessions to Huguenots rather than the policies of repression pursued by Henry II and his father, Francis I. They were initially supported by Catherine de' Medici, whose January 1562 Edict of Saint-Germain was strongly opposed by the Guise faction and led to an outbreak of widespread fighting in March. She later hardened her stance and backed for 1572 St. Bartholomew's Day Massacre in Paris, which resulted in Catholic mobs killing between 5,000 and 30,000 Protestants throughout France. The wars threatened the authority of the monarchy and the last Valois kings, Catherine's three sons, Francis II, Charles IX, and Henry III. Their Bourbon successor, Henry IV, responded by creating a strong central state and extending toleration to Huguenots. The latter policy would last until 1685, when Henry's grandson, Louis XIV of France, revoked the Edict of Nantes. And I think that will do for today's history lesson / AOD's Classic Doctor Who Retrospective. Thanks again, my friends. Do tune in next time if you are so inclined.